Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Newsbrowse News broadcast. The Canadian press reports that Prime Minister Mark Carney and 9 European leaders issued a joint statement Wednesday, welcoming a reported 2-week ceasefire between the United States and Iran. The agreement was announced after President Donald Trump's stark warning that a whole civilization would die if a deal wasn't reached to reopen the critical Strait of Hormuz shipping lane. The terms of the deal include discussions on reconstruction, sanctions relief, and the resumption of tanker traffic in the Strait of Hormuz, potentially subject to future tolls. Carney and the European leaders commended Pakistan and its partners for their role in facilitating this crucial agreement. They emphasized the need for a diplomatic, long-lasting solution to the conflict, which must also address the situation in Lebanon, where Israel has reportedly launched strikes. The statement concluded with a pledge from their governments to contribute to ensuring freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz, though without specifying details. Prime Minister Carney is currently holding a virtual cabinet meeting. According to the Canadian press, oil prices are experiencing a significant decline, moving back toward $95 per barrel, while global stock markets are surging. This worldwide rally follows an announcement by President Donald Trump of a 2-week ceasefire with Iran, stepping back from earlier threats of severe conflict. On Wednesday, the S&P 500 index rose by 2.1%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average soared 1,076 points, and the Nasdaq Composite rallied by 2.5%. However, it is noted that despite these gains, stock prices remain below their pre-war levels. Similarly, oil prices, while plunging, are still higher than before the conflict began, reflecting the lingering uncertainty and the potential for hostilities to resume. The initial strong market movements were somewhat moderated as the trading day progressed. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte arrived in Washington on Wednesday for a crucial meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump, aiming to de-escalate growing transatlantic tensions. The diplomatic visit comes after several European NATO allies refused to support the U.S. in its war with Iran, specifically by denying use of their airspace or military bases and declining to participate in military action to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. These actions have provoked strong reactions from President Trump, who questioned the value of U.S. membership in the defensive alliance and threatened to reconsider the U.S. contribution. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth also attended the meeting. Experts like former U.S. Ambassador to NATO Kurt Volker criticized European messaging, while Matthew Kroenig of the Atlantic Council expressed hope that Rutte, dubbed a Trump whisperer, could successfully navigate the strained relationship. Rutte's role is seen as a delicate balancing act to maintain U.S. commitment to NATO while defending allies' right to abstain from the Iran conflict. This report is from UPI. A new report from the Fraser Institute, highlighted by CTV News, indicates that Ontario is experiencing a significant decline in living standards compared to its U.S. neighbors in the Great Lakes region. The study, which uses GDP per person as a key metric for economic prosperity, found that in 2024, Ontario's GDP per person stood at $74,143, ranking second lowest in the region, only ahead of Quebec. This figure is approximately 27.5% lower than the regional average of $94,523. Furthermore, the report emphasizes that this economic disparity has grown considerably over the past 2 decades. In 2001, the regional average GDP per person was 23.7% higher than Ontario's, a gap that expanded to 34.5% by 2024. Researchers warn that this weaker economic growth translates into less job creation, slower wage growth, and increased pressure on public finances, urging policymakers to address these consequences for the economic well-being of Ontarians. According to the Canadian press, Iran, the United States, and Israel have agreed to a 2-week ceasefire, a last-minute deal that prevented U.S. President Donald Trump's threatened bombing campaign. Despite the agreement, new attacks were reported in Iran and Gulf Arab countries just hours after the announcement, making the deal fragile as described by U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance. The terms remain largely unclear, with each side presenting different interpretations. Iran stated the deal would allow it to formalize charging fees for ships in the Strait of Hormuz, a critical oil transit lane, though it's uncertain if other nations agree. Pakistan, a mediator, indicated a pause in fighting in Lebanon, where Israel has been combating Hezbollah. However, Israel denied this, and strikes continued in Beirut. The future of Iran's missile and nuclear programs, which were key war objectives, is also ambiguous, with Trump mentioning U.S. efforts to remove buried enriched uranium, a claim not confirmed by Iran. The ceasefire's fragility is underscored by continued hostilities and public protests in Tehran against the U.S. and Israel. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.